Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our March meeting for Strong Readers. I am Deanne Jones. I'm the project director for Strong Readers here in the state of Oklahoma. We are starting off this morning with Lindsay Sizemore. She is going to do a presentation for us. And so, Lindsay, I will turn it over to you at this point.
Are we good to go? Dan, can you see my vocabulary
I
PowerPoint?
do. I see it. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Welcome, everybody. My name is Lindsay Sizemore, and I'm here from the Heroes team today to just briefly, very briefly, give you an introduction to vocabulary. Heroes is helping elevate reading outcomes for every student. And when I say student, a lot of us think kiddos in our classrooms, but a student might also be a teacher, an administrator, a district level person that might need some information, and therefore they are a student as well. So don't think you're excluded from learning just because I have labeled student into who we help support. Um, I'm going to shamelessly plug our Heroes team in a secondary way as well. We are going across the state again for Pages Across the Plains. That is our summer PD literacy series, if you will. We will be all over the state, 6 major locations. That's going to be Shawnee, Woodward, Guyman, Altus, McAllister, or it will be at the Career Tech in McAllister and Sand Springs. And I am sure if Megan Ashbaugh is in here, she will correct me if I missed any of that up or messed any of that up. I'm sorry. You will be receiving future information about this starting about the beginning of April. They will be coming out in the bi-weekly newsletters that we get from the State Department. I prefer the term bi-monthly. It just works out a little bit better for me. So when those OSDE newsletters come out, there will be registration links and there will be updates in there as well as on social media. So you can look for our Heroes Literacy team. You can look for Melissa Algram and the Literacy Facebook page as well. And we will continue to update in those areas. I'm done with my plug. I'm going to move into our purpose for today, which is to very briefly, as brief as I can make it, talk about vocabulary. So next month, I believe in April, Classy will be returning and she will be talking about morphemes and morphological awareness. And so my topic of vocabulary is going to be the importance of vocabulary and why we should be intentionally instructing it. As Classy comes and presents the next month, she will then dive deeper into morphology and those pieces. So I'm going to orient us by starting at Scarborough's Rope. With Scarborough's Rope, as always, the outcome is skilled reading. And it takes all of these areas on the right-hand side as input going into the student to make a skilled reader. Today, you can see my box covers background knowledge, vocabulary, and language structures, which includes syntax and semantics. And you might be asking, Lindsay, why do you have these boxes or why do you have these particular strands boxed? And the reason I do is because I like to say they are so tightly woven together that is very hard to separate vocabulary knowledge from background knowledge, because whatever experience I have with that vocabulary word or whatever my background is really going to drive my interpretation of that word. So for example, I might have a teacher that asks their class to draw a picture of a rose. And when I get all their pictures back, there might be a picture or two of the stem itself with the thorns. So I ask my teachers, would you count that right or would you count that wrong? If you were grading that student's paper, you asked for a rose and in return you received the stem with the thorns. Right or wrong? It would be right. That student's experience was probably with grabbing a rose and then pulling their hand back in horror as they realized that beautiful rose had all these sticky thorns on the back side of it. That background experience really drove their definition of the word rose. So, as teachers, we have got to be looking at background knowledge and how vocabulary begins to support that background knowledge and how we can intentionally weave the two together. That is schema development. That is building the mental model for students and making the connections between all these different topics. So, vocabulary is words we must know to communicate effectively, whether that is somebody speaking to me and I have to understand the order the words are in and what they mean, or whether that is I speaking to somebody else. I have to get my point across. This is called our storehouse of meanings. It might be called our mental lexicon. It might be called our mental dictionary, but all of these things and terms are referencing vocabulary. The did you know is down there. Did you know that children's books contain more unique vocabulary than adult sitcoms that you might watch on TV? So, the language comprehension that is necessary for a student to understand a picture book is actually more in depth than if they're listening to a sitcom at an adult level on the TV. So, I always encourage my teachers, if you have a YouTube video for it, find a children's book, find a book on a lower level, and you can get a lot more out of introducing terms and using and scaffolding our learning this way. So there are 4 ways then that we can look at vocabulary. We have input, which comes in, and we have output, which goes out. So if it comes in, it's coming in either through my ears, which means somebody is speaking to me or I'm listening to something, or it comes in through my eyes, which means I am reading something. Those are inputs that go into my brain, if you will. The outputs then are when I speak and I have to produce something. It's either going to be speech or it's going to be writing in some way. So every lesson that I step into and observe should contain all 4 of these. There should be a listening part, there should be a speaking part. I should then take it to reading, and then I should take it to writing. And it can be lots of combinations of those. As a student is starting out with a vocabulary word, I might not have them use it in sentences as much because they might not have a lot of background vocabulary with it. If you ask your kiddos, what do you know about this word? And they sit there silently, that is a red flag that they probably do not have the background knowledge to be able to orally tell you what that word means. So those are clues to us as instructional leaders that we need to pay attention, and we probably need to provide some scaffolding or some differentiation to support that student's learning. So did you know 50 to 60% of the reading variance in comprehension scores can be attributed to vocabulary? This shows up even more with our EL students, our students that might be low language kiddos. Maybe they have developmental language delays. Maybe they have other special education things that they now have IEPs for. It might be students that come from households where not a lot of speaking is done. All of these things and the environments that the kiddos are in will affect that input output of vocabulary. So just as kind of something to think about, for me, this always makes my heart stop when I think about previous kiddos that I've had. The size of a child's vocabulary in kindergarten predicts the ability to learn to read. Another statistic that I tie with this, a first grade student's vocabulary level will be comparable when they are in 11th grade or as juniors. So if they have a low vocabulary in first grade and we are not intentionally intervening and teaching that vocabulary, they will still have low vocabulary as a junior in high school. So it kind of makes my heart freeze when I think about my first graders that I had forever, and they struggled with vocabulary. And how good did I go back and teach it? At that point in time, I would say probably not very well. Okay. So vocabulary is the place that if we are looking to make these comprehension gains and our kiddos can read the words, vocabulary needs to be where I am beefing things up. In addition, we need to be teaching vocabulary words from pre-K all the way up. I am still learning vocabulary words. Our kiddos come to us with some delays in language a lot of times as the result of a device, as a result of the environment that they're in. But this chart by B. Miller, 1999, revisited in 2005, looks at the end of pre-K through the end of second grade. The middle column is your average student. In the right-hand column, that is your bottom quartile or your lowest 25%, 25% of students. So when you look across, even at 4 years old, at the end of pre-K, students, if they're in that bottom quartile, are already 1,000 words behind where they should be. And I don't know anybody that has time to teach 1,000 vocabulary words. At most, we're teaching 200 to 400 in a year. By second grade, if we are not taking steps to address that discrepancy, we're at 2,000 words behind now. And that is with teaching occurring, with using larger vocabularies and language. So we have to figure out how to steep our students in authentic language experiences where they're using these vocabulary words and they're writing about them as well. I've provided just a couple of ways that can happen. These start with listening with language. So simply having a conversation with an adult who uses language appropriately. That's a key. Maybe you partner them with a higher level language peer so they can hear language being used appropriately. And I might grow the things we're talking about. Or I might change it out. So instead of asking them to line up, I might ask them to line up vertically, or I might ask them to line up horizontally. Or instead of saying, you did a great job, I could say, you did an extraordinary job. So just by me using what we would call $10 words, because that's how we describe them to kids, they are more likely to then start using those words as well. You can also elaborate on sentences. Classy talked about this when she mentioned syntax last month. You can also do this orally with kiddos of any age. If the child says that's a ball, I'm going to elaborate on what they said. You are exactly right. That is a ball. That is an orange rubber bouncy ball. Can you bounce that ball? Show me how good it bounces. And have the kid use the language back. Oh, look at me bounce the ball. We want to say the word and have them say it back and forth with us. The 12 exposures is what minimum. 12 exposures minimum is about what it will take for a kid to internalize the vocabulary word and to start using it themselves. Okay. So I don't forget it. That second bullet is shared readings and read alouds. These are great ways to surround our kiddos in high level vocabulary. We might introduce the vocabulary before we start, and then throughout my lesson, I'm going to revisit it. If I'm reading a story, the kid could give me a thumbs up if they hear a vocabulary word, or maybe we have the no sign because they don't hear vocabulary words. But we want to choose texts that have unique and rare vocabulary. And then we want to revisit that all the way through us reading the book. Finally, I wanted to just put up here a direct teaching routine so you had some idea of what that might look like. I always encourage my teachers to say the word and have the kids repeat it about 3 times. So if my word is delightful, I might put my hand like this. My word is delightful. Students, and then I point my hand towards my students and they repeat the word to me. As we're doing that, I am listening for them to pronounce the word correctly, because if we store it wrong, retrieval becomes almost impossible. My 5th graders with commutative property instead of communicative or communicate property, I would force them to re-say that word over and over again. And every time we would practice it, I would make them say it again so that they could store it right for then easy retrieval afterwards. What I have done is here is a slide of resources. And the 3 slides I just really quick kind of flipped through are these text talk lessons from the Colorado Department of Education. They used to be called Utah Text Talk Lessons, if you're familiar with those, but they are explicit vocabulary lessons. So they tell you the title of the story in the upper right-hand corner. So this is A Bad Case of Stripes. It then identifies potential tier 2 words for the kiddos to be taught. And then it tells you in this particular selection, we're choosing the words fretting, contagious, and remedy. Then it explicitly supports the teacher in that read aloud. So page by page, it tells you what to do and it tells you what to say. As you move through this, each lesson is about 5 or 6 pages, but it gives kids sentences and the kids have to identify whether they're using the word correctly or not. They then have to produce the word themselves. So the input output that I talked about in the 4 steps, all text talk lessons go through listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And then finally, there is a little short 3-piece assessment that's already built in. That covers my short, brief, sorry, Deanne, I was a little over 15 minutes for my vocabulary talk. If you have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Let me know, reach out. I'm Lindsay Sizemore, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of your day today.
Okay. Thank you, Lindsay. Now I'm going to get into the agenda. Okay, so we've already got to Lindsay, and thank you, Lindsay, for the vocabulary mini PD. So the next topic was a hot topic around our circles last week was the letters of non-compliance with our 10% requirement. Letters were sent out to superintendents on February 24th to the districts that were flagged for not complying with the 10% requirement on professional development. So first I want to just review the professional development rule. The rule under Strong Readers for professional development is that if your district receives at least $2,500 in Strong Readers funds, that you're required to spend 10% of those funds on an approved science of reading aligned professional development or related expenses to that. We do have a program code that we track that with, which is program code 439. That code was new last school year. And that was the cause of a lot of the schools getting this letter. We had many of our districts that really had spent money on professional development that was from one of our approved vendors and expenses related to that, but they didn't use this program code. So if that was the case with your district, if your district received one of these letters and you had done some of that professional development, just make sure that going forward, you're using that code. So if your school received one of those letters, I talked to many of you on through email or phone calls, but if you have not contacted me, and you think you did spend some, you very well could have, but if you didn't use that program code, that's why you got the letter, because when we run the report, it's only showing us what was spent using that code. So when some people have contacted me, then I've gone into their actual expenditure report and found those line items. And yes, maybe you did spend this money and you gave a teacher a stipend for doing letters or for doing Ames Pathway, some of those things that would have fulfilled the requirement, but it just wasn't coded with this code. So just make sure that if your school received one of those letters, there is nothing you need to change for school year 24-25. Those have all been submitted. We can't change anything on those. Just make sure that you're adjusting moving forward, that you, first of all, are spending 10% of your funds on professional development or related expenses to it. And secondly, that you're coding it with that 439 so that when we run our report, you're getting the credit that you should get for spending those funds. If you have not yet spent your funds, so if you have maybe spent some of it, but not enough to meet the 10% requirement, let's talk about some ways that you could spend the rest of your 10% requirement for this school year. We do have a list of professional development that's approved, and it has to be one of the ones from that list, the vendors on that list. You can find that here. That is linked. We're going to look at it in just a minute, but the ones there you can go find. There are a few on there that are free. And so if you're doing one of the free ones that are on there, there's a free one from Amira. There's a free one on the OSDE Connect page. You can give your teachers a stipend for completing that, and that could help fulfill your 10% requirement. You also can give your teachers a stipend for completing any of the ones on that list if they're doing it outside of contract hours. So that's one of the ways that you can spend your money. It can be registration expenses for the PD. It can be stipends for the staff if they're completing it outside of contract hours. It can be travel expenses for the staff. We just can't pay for meals, but it could be their hotel, vehicle expenses, for your school for their way to get to the training. It can also be for substitute pay. If you're sending teachers to a training during a school day and you have to pay substitutes to cover their class, we can count that, and you just make sure that you code that with 439 as well, and that can contribute to your 10% requirement. The last thing is materials needed to implement what was learned. So if you're having to buy any materials for the training that you're going to, you can code that with 439. The general rule for that is what's stated here. If it is materials that are needed to implement what you learned, then you can code it that way. So what we're looking at for that is if you're going to a training and like you go to Really Great Reading and they're talking about using the alphabet arc, then maybe you need to buy some student copies of the alphabet arc and you need to buy some of the little letters to put on. That would be closely tied to what you learned. You are needing that to implement what you learned at that training. And we get into some gray areas, like you can't count like I need a dry erase board because I'm going to use that to teach, a big dry erase board for my classroom, or I need a smart board. Like it has to be really directly tied to what you're learning, and that you need those materials to implement what you learned at your training. I want to go ahead and click. Yes.
There is one question. It
Okay.
asks, the question is, can we pay stipends to support staff who complete training who are working with students in literacy?
Yes, you can. So we have across the state, we have lots of people who use their paras to run a group during their intervention time. And yes, we want those people to be trained as well. So if you have paras who are helping with your intervention time, that is perfectly acceptable to send them to training. It can cover their registration, or their travel as well if they're having to travel somewhere. So yes, that would be fine. I want to look at the professional development approved list for
Why?
just a second. Go
There's one
ahead.
more question, Dan, and it kind of,
Mhm,
if we spend the 10% on PD on the list, then can
mhm.
we spend the remaining funds on PD that is not on the list?
Yes, you can. So you can actually use Strong Readers Funds to pay for any literacy related professional development that your district chooses to. But it has to be from our list to count to the 10%. But yes, if you've already spent your 10% and you have other PD you want to go to that's literacy related, that is up to your district and you can use Strong Readers Funds for that and related expenses as well. So these are the ones that are approved, and you'll see you can find over here is listed the vendor, and then we've got the program for the professional development. If you scroll, we do try to have the website and their focus. So if you're looking for a training specifically, say for vocabulary, there's one right there. Um, and we try to keep this up to date. I will say things change a lot as far as what's offered virtually or what's in person only. We do give vendors an opportunity to give us more information where we can keep this updated, and we try. Also, here's the estimated length of time that it takes to complete these and if they have any endorsements. So we have that there for you. We have added many to this in the last year or so. So we are now up to, I think it's 100 and yeah, 153. I was thinking 140. We have 153 on here now that are approved. So these are the ones that you can choose. And we also, I want to point out that if you have something that you want to do at your school for training and it's not on this list and you think it would qualify, you can invite them to apply for review. So right up at the top of this is the information that they would need. This is telling the vendor, this is the form that they would go to and complete so that we could review them. Our next deadline is coming up pretty soon, is April 24th. We're going to only review these one time a year. So if you have a training that you would like to see approved, try to get this link out to them. Say, hey, I would like to use your funding, but we want to use our 10% requirement. Could you apply for this? So if they apply by April 24th, we will review them this spring. And we should have the ones that we approve posted on this page by June 5th. So I'm going to go back to my agenda. I have that here for you. I have the link right here that you could send. You could just copy and paste this whole section right here. And that way you have the list and you have the next submission deadline and when we will have the information posted, and as well as the link for the vendor to apply. So by all means, if you have something that you would like to see approved, we would like to review it. So send it our way. Is there any other questions around professional development?
The other one, so it's just kind of a clarification question.
Okay.
This person does not believe that UFly is currently on the approved list. They are assuming that they have been invited to apply. However, since they already sent 2 teachers to the academy and they aren't currently on the list, they cannot use that as part of the 10%. Is that correct?
Yeah, they cannot use it because it is not currently on the list. You can invite them to, um, you could invite them to be reviewed, and we will review them before the deadline. So that makes it tricky because it's really close. You wouldn't know ahead of time because you're not going to know till June if they make it this time. But definitely you can invite them to attend. But yes, you can still use your Strong Readers funds for that, but it's not going to contribute to that 10% requirement.
And it's the vendor that has to be on the list, correct? But the PD might not be listed
That is
on
true.
the.
We try to put each one of the approved courses on there, but sometimes they're changing them, or maybe they change the name of one. We had some that combined some or split some out into separate courses. So if you have a real question, you can email me and I can answer it. But my general answer is if the vendor is on the list and it is a literacy related course, then we're probably going to approve it. So we do try to work with them as they change them and try to get as many of them added as on there as we can. But if you have a question about one, you can email me. But I would say that's my general answer is if the vendor's approved and it's literacy related, you're okay.
Okay, that's it so
All right.
far. Thank you, Dan.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to March reminders. It is March. You guys are so close to spring break, almost there. So just a reminder that as you're doing those parent teacher conferences, possibly this week, review your data. And if you have those parents in there, go ahead and get that second signature on the slip form. It's not required any longer. The second signature is optional, but it would be a good time to just review what interventions you're doing for their student, what ways they can help their student, and go ahead and get a signature on there as well. Another reminder that I have for you is that EOI screenings are to be done in April or May. So we have lots of districts who want to go ahead and get ahead, and they're trying to do that EOI in March. And that is just not a true measure of the student's end of the year performance. So we want to make sure that those end of the year ones are done in April or May. If you choose to go ahead and give it early in March, just so that you have an updated score to talk to parents about at parent teacher conference, I completely understand that. You want to have the most up-to-date measure of their students' ability to discuss with them. Even if you're documenting that maybe on the slip and having the parents sign, but you still want to go back at the end of the year and put that end of the year score in there. And we want to have an end of the year measure that is a true end of the year depiction of the student's ability. Another quick reminder is around third grade retention. Currently, the way we are functioning, we do not have third grade promotion retention handled at the state level. It is handled just like every other grade at your district. So there will not be RSA criteria on the state test this year. So once again, on OSTP, you will not be getting results for RSA criteria for your third grade students. So when you're looking at promotion or retention decisions on third graders, that is going to be handled at the district level, whatever your district's policy is for considering retention.
Okay, Deanne. When is the end of year state report due?
It's opening in April. It's due, so I don't have that right in front of me. I'm not in my office today. I am in McAllister at a training. I can't remember. It's May something is when it's due. I don't remember the date. I'll put that on next month. But it is opening I think it's opening April 15th, and it's due somewhere around the end of May.
Okay. And
Mhm.
one other question, do we know if UFly has actually applied on the SORPD vendor link?
I do not know that offhand.
Okay. Okay. We just had a couple of people asking.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So far, that's all I've got for you, Deanne.
Okay, let's move on to Amira. We have been using Amira as our state screener for 2 school years now, I guess a year and a half in. And so we're looking for some feedback from our districts who have been using Amira on our state contract. And we want to get some feedback from you so that we can better our implementation of Amira statewide, and we can better our usage of Amira statewide. So there's a link here in the agenda for an Amira survey. And we have also put this on our State Department page. If you go to the OSDE page and you look for Amira, if you just go into the search on the state page for Amira and go to the Amira state, it says Strong Readers Amira page. This survey is also linked there. And we would like as many districts as are using this to complete this so that we can get a complete look at how it's going statewide. The deadline for submitting this survey is April 1st, and we would love to have you participate in that. Also, along the Amira lines, I've had several questions about parents questioning the schools about use of AI and Amira and it being an AI tool and how that looks for their students and protecting their students and their students' information. And so Amira has a packet, and it is right here in the agenda. You can click this link to find the Amira parent communication packet, and it has some information that you can send to your parents of how Amira is protecting your students' information. This is also, we also did add this to our Amira page under parent communication tools. And so you can find that there as well. We talked just a little bit earlier about retention briefly and how I was saying that, currently we are functioning without state level requirements for third grade promotion. So I want to talk just for a minute about legislation. We have several bills up in legislature that are being looked at right now. And I just want you to know that here at OSDE, we are actively monitoring all of these bills. We are already looking at them and brainstorming, if this one passes, what do we need to do to help our districts? If this version of it passes, if this other one passes. So we're constantly looking through that and thinking that out and like, if this passes, what do our districts need from us to support them through this change? So we're already looking at what guidance documents we would need to create, what forms would need to be updated or changed or created, what webinars or trainings we might need to create. I will be, if anything passes, I will be presenting at everything I can go to this summer as far as administrators conference, special ed conference, all the conferences that we have available. We will have things at Pages Across the Plains on any of the changes, any updates that we need, as well as I'm sure I will be doing some webinars around back to school time and in the summer, and even maybe doing some recorded webinars that we can post, just helping to we want to make the transition, whatever they come up with, whatever happens, we want to make sure that our districts have the most support that they need to make all those changes go through smoothly. So one of those things that is a hot topic right now is the third grade retention. So we're currently in our second school year of students not being held to the state level requirements for third grade promotion. And that is one of the things that's really being talked about in legislature right now, is bringing that back. It's possibly bringing back third grade attention. So just a couple points to bring out right now is, while you're thinking about that, while you're hearing about that in the news and social media and, in the workroom or wherever it's being talked about, just remember that our focus is not on retention. When we're thinking about helping our readers, our focus is going to remain the same. Our focus is on providing, number one, strong tier one instruction. We want to make sure that all of our students are getting a strong instruction, building a solid foundation with those early skills. And then secondly, we're thinking about early identification. If our students are struggling, we want to identify the students that are struggling early so that we can get them help as soon as possible. And we want to give them that help with some targeted interventions. So that would be the main thing I'm saying. If people are asking you, hey, I'm hearing about this, what do you think about it? Our focus is still the same. We're focusing on strong tier one instruction. We're focusing on early identification and targeted interventions for the students who need it. And we all know that retention is not intervention. Retention is not meant to be intervention. It's just a safeguard to ensure that our students are having that time if we're already giving them interventions, and maybe we need a little bit more time for those interventions to work before that student has made enough progress to move on to the next grade level. That's where retention comes in. It's that last fail stop. It's not the number one intervention. It's the fail stop for the interventions. And then lastly, when we're thinking about intervention, if we do retain a student, if we do retain a student in third grade, what's that next year going to look like? Because if it looks like it did just the year before, then we're not doing that student we're doing that student a disservice if we're just holding them back and doing the same thing we already did with that student. So when we're retaining students, we want to make sure that they're receiving intensive support in the areas that they need. We want to continue to monitor their progress. We want to continue to assess them and provide interventions that are targeted to their needs, their specific needs. So that's really the main points when I'm thinking about retention is, if we are retaining them, what are we doing for them? We want to make, if we're holding them back a year, we want to make sure that they're growing during that year and that year is beneficial for them. So, any questions about retention?
Not about retention.
Okay.
And I know that we might not, well, okay, there's two.
Or that I can
If
answer.
if any of the bills pass, what school year might they begin?
So, I mean, we don't know what that's going to look like. What I've seen right now, but can always change, in the bill that is Speaker Hilbert's bill, most of the stuff would implement next school year, but they did give the retention an extra year out. So I don't remember what it is in one of the other bills I was looking at, but most of them have the majority of their provisions going into effect for this 26-27 school year. But I did see on that one, they had changed that to where the third grade retention would be for 27-28 school year. So another thing that we're looking at is some of them are limiting the screeners to where we would either have a smaller amount of screeners for schools to choose from, or we would just have one statewide screener that everyone would have to use. Currently, the bills that are being looked at have that happening for next school year. I don't know if it will stay that way. If it does, we will have to do some changes pretty quick. So, yeah, we'll just have to see if they give us another year out for that, or if they leave it where that's going to take effect this school year, this coming
Right.
school year.
Oh, and then back to you, Fly, and coding real fast. So would they still code the U-Fly training with the 439 because it was training? However, they would still need to make sure that they do have at least 10% of this year's received funds spent with only the approved PD, travel, supplies, etc. from the list.
No, if it is not from that approved list, do not code it with 439. So if it's a professional development that's anything other than on that list, you're going to code it with just the regular 427, which is the general strong readers code. We have four project codes. I'm sorry, program codes. Project code is 367 for everything strong readers. That means it's coming from your strong readers funds. But we have four program codes. One is the general strong readers, which is 427. And then we have 439, which is for the approved professional development. And then there's that you can use the special ed program code, as well as we have a program code for summer school. So we have the four program codes that are accepted. We've been doing lots of work on our coding. And so if your school is sending through any trial data, trial uploads to the financial office right now, and you're getting any error codes related to strong readers, message me, or you can also message Catherine Black. She's in our financial office in the OCAS office, because lots of them, if I don't know, I just have to forward them on to her. There's some of them I can field though. Because right now, if you're sending through that trial data, that's when we can help you and get it all sorted out before we get to that July 1 date. So if you're having any questions or you're getting any error codes, just make sure you let myself know, or like I said, Catherine Black is really the expert in that. And some of them I do have to go ahead and send to her if I don't know. But that is the four program codes that that are accepted under strong readers. If you put in any other program code other than those four, it's going to kick it back out.
Okay, so that is one of the comments. They have noticed that object codes 623 and 625 for gas and diesel are not working again this year.
Yeah, I've talked to, I don't know if that's the same school, but I've been emailing a school back and forth about that. And I have forwarded your email to Catherine, and we are working on that, because that one was supposed to be on there. So if that one's not going through, I'm going to get that fixed. We did add that for summer school last year. And so I already have forwarded that on to Catherine, and we'll be getting that will be fixed.
And then the final question, well, maybe not the final, if we do go to a statewide screener, will we go back through the process to select the statewide screener, or would it just be?
That is a question I don't know the answer to yet. I have the same exact question, and we don't have the answer to that yet. I think it may depend on how it is written up, because some versions of the bill have it where OSDE would pick it, and some versions have it where CEQA would narrow it to certain ones, and then we could pick from ones that they have selected. I think some even had that they would select it. So I think it just depends on how the final version of whatever passes has it written out. And then we would have to see how that looks, number one, and then we would have to get further clarification if it is us selecting it, can we continue our existing contract, or do we have to run another RFP? So we don't know the answer to that yet.
Okay. And then finally, the Amira approved screener is only free for K through third grade. Is that correct, or does it go up through 11th?
That is not correct. It is free for K through 5 for the no, let me back up. For the assessment, for the screening assessment, it is currently free K through 8. And then for the tutor portion, where you're working with the online tutor, that is free for K through 5. So screening and tutor K through 5, screening only through 8th.
Any last questions? I haven't seen anything else pop up. Going
Well,
once, going twice. All right, Deanne.
okay. I think that's all. If you need anything else, as always, just give us an email or a call. You can email us at literacy@sde.ok.gov, or you can call me. And thank you guys so much for the service you do every day for students across this day. And I wish you endurance pressing through the rest of this week, and then just enjoy your spring break so much. You deserve it. So you deserve it. Thank you.